invitation on such a short notice. Actually,
Pleasure,
I'm
ma'am.
not well, so please pardon me.
No issues, ma'am. I think whatever entrepreneurship initiative can be taken, I always want to be part of every initiative. So even in the Chhattisgarh also, so we are very much involved in this whole process. We are coming up with our own incubator so that we can come up with more startup here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's wonderful to listen to such initiatives.
Okay. Nita, now it's live.
Okay, so shall we start?
Yes.
Okay.
Neeta, ma'am, I think we can start now.
Nita, you are mute. Please start the session.
Okay, I'm starting. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Dr. Neeta Sahu, Assistant Professor, Department of Education, SS Khanna Girls Degree College, welcome you all in this IIC activity, a lecture on developing online repositories of POC organized by SSK IIC of the college. Now, I call Dr. Nirja Sachdeva Madam, Vice Principal of our college, to accord formal welcome to our esteemed guests and all the participants. Madam.
Thank you, Neeta. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. And it's my pleasure to host the program as a person who's going to welcome all of you out here, and especially to all the members of the Institutional Innovation Council, IIC of SS Khanna Girls Degree College. And I feel proud and privileged to welcome Dr. Amit Kumar Agarwal, who is going to be the eminent speaker on developing online repositories of POC. This is absolutely a very new topic for all of us. And in fact, he, as an entrepreneur, is going to throw light on various aspects of the repositories, which the students will be enlightened, and students, after hearing the lecture, will definitely take the feedback with them. And before the program is going to commence, let me welcome Dr. Amit Kumar Agarwal. Dr. Agarwal is an assistant professor and president, IIC Department of Management and Business Information in Dr. S.P. Mukherjee International Institute of Information Technology, Naya Raipur, Chhattisgarh. Before joining IIT Naya Raipur, he has served in various capacities from 2007 to 2017, like financial service consultant, brand and marketing communication officer, lecturer and assistant professor, marketing at Symbiosis. Dr. Agarwal is an MBA with a doctorate degree in marketing from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He has published more than 15 research papers in journals and conference proceedings of international repute. He has also served as reviewer of papers, articles of many reputed international journals and conferences. Your research interest areas are custom value, co-creation, technological adoption, services, consumer behavior, and marketing. Dr. Agarwal is bearing responsibilities of various cells, committees, and councils. And not to mention the awards that he has received, he was awarded Institute MHRD Fellowship by IIT Roorkee for pursuing PhD in year 2012, and he was awarded 4 times Station of Month Award at Radio Mantra 91.9 FM in overall performance category. Sir, we are happy to have you here with us and to throw light on the particular subject. But before we begin the program, I would also like to welcome Professor Lalima Singh, who is the principal of our college, as well as the director of IIC and the president of this IIC. Dr. Manjari Shukla, who is the Vice President, Dr. Meenu Agarwal, who is the Coordinator of NIRF and IPR, Dr. Anuradha Singh, who is the Convener of IIC, and it is commendable that she keeps on organizing such activities for the benefit of the students and for the benefit of the staff also. I also welcome our activity coordinators, Dr. Nishi Seth and Dr. Neeta Sahu, as well as all the members of the organizing team. We are happy to have all of you, here with us, and I'm sure you will definitely enlighten us. And it is commendable on your part, sir, to be with us. Thank you so much. And now over to you, Dr. Neeta.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your so warm welcome. So without any delay, now I request Dr. Agarwal to begin his lecture on developing online repositories of POC. Please, sir.
So you are mute.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this warm welcome. I have so many good memories of Allahabad. My first job was in Allahabad, and so from there I have traveled to so many parts. So without taking much of the time, I would start one of the most exciting lesson on in entrepreneurship, which is known as the proof of concept. And I feel that overall, I still is a learner. So wherever you feel that I might have made a mistake, or wherever you feel that you have certain query, you can stop me and you can ask me question, or you can ping in the chat. I would try to go through the questions in the chat, and I would try to give answers to whatever capacity or in whatever way I feel that I have that kind of experience. So be comfortable with that and try to, whenever you feel, you can stop me and you can ask question. Ma'am, do I have a screen share option with me? Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so before moving into the online repository, I feel that I should first state the learning objective for today's class. So initially we'll start with what is POC, and then we'll try to look into what are the steps to develop POC. And when we are going to learn about the steps to develop POC, we'll be actually looking into the idea generation, then how solution generate, how we can generate solution, and then to the lean methodology, which is very much related to the proof of concept. And finally to the problem market fit, which leads to the go-to-market strategy. So this is what we are going to follow. And I believe that all of us should start with the entrepreneurship or with proof of concept with one of the statement, which is my favorite. I feel that every one of should, once you go through this statement, you will find yourself sync with this statement. And this is something which is deviation from what the existing concepts holds in the entrepreneurship. The statement is customer don't buy products, customer buys solutions to the problem. Sorry for the because which is written there. The statement is the customer don't buy products, customer buys solutions to the problem. This is the fundamental thing over which the proof of concept or everything which we are going to study is going to be based on. And you will feel very acutely that this is why the customer make purchases. This is why the customer go to the malls. This is why the customer shops, because they are not buying product, they are buying solutions to the problem which they are having. And over the period of these slides, or the period of the period when we are moving forward, we will be discussing this thing more in detail. But I want that this statement you should fundamentally keep in your mind, because this statement is where everything hinges on. So when we talk about the POC, we find that one of the first thing about the POC is it is an evidence that your idea or product or service or technology is feasible. So that means that you come to know that whatever idea you have conceptualized, or whatever product or services you have created, you feel that you can develop it. This is what the POC means, very plain and simple. This is an evidence. So whenever we are going into the entrepreneurship, you'll find out that there is new methodology which has come up, which says that we have to experiment everything. So you'll find out, like science, the same thing is happening in entrepreneurship, and the experimentation is is becoming the front runner, and you will find out that everyone is now experimenting with your idea. You will be surprised to know that Amazon every day almost experiment 1 lakh ideas. So many of the idea fails, but many of the good idea generated from those experiments are taken forward. So that is why whole of the proof of concept is based on the concept of experimentation, and we'll learn those things when we'll go forward. So all you know to know whether the customer will like, hate, or discard your idea. This is what we are going to look into proof of concept. So once you create an idea, you will take a validation from the customer. The customer validation is what is required. And through the customer validation, you will come to know that yes, this idea is well taken. And one of the good thing about the POC is you will get the customer feedback, which will save your efforts, your money, and your time. So this is what the proof of concept is all about. But reaching to that proof of concept is a critical process. And many times what happened, we forgot the path to reach to that to POC, which goes through the customer. Let me. So most of the time when we look into POC, we'll find out that there are 3 dimensions attached to the POC. One is the feasibility, another is the desirability, and third is the viability, or sorry, we can start with the desirability, because that is about the whether the product or the solution you come up is desirable or not by your customer segment. And the second thing is whether it is feasible or not, whether can you make it in with the available resources. And the third most important thing is whether it is viable or not. So whenever you come up with a solution, until and unless you are reaching out to all these 3 dimensions, you will find that somewhere your product is not going to be adopted by the customers. So the customer adoption only happens when these 3 dimensions are there. And these 3 dimensions are very integral for the POC. And over the period of time, we'll learn how to come up with these 3 things. So what happened that most of the time, so when we are talking about this whole POC and the 3 dimensions which the POC should have, we find that one of the biggest issue which almost every student make mistake is the problem. And I feel that since all of us are from the academic background and there are students too, many of you might be doing some kind of research under the professor, you will feel that the most of the time, the biggest obstacle for any research is to identify the problem underneath. Once you identify the problem, you find out that your 70% of the work is done. Even I think there's a very famous quote by Einstein where he says that I spend almost 80% of my time, 80 or 90% of my time on finding out, identifying the right problem. And rest 10% of the time is solving that problem. So that is why the problem is so important. And most of the time we find that the problem identified are not according to is not what is coming from the customers. It is what we have made by our own intuitions, by our own environment. We feel that this is what the problem is. So actually, whenever we are going for a POC, we have to first determine what is the problem. And since I'm one of the entrepreneurship professor here, so whenever we have a very experiential course where a student have to come up with a practice venture on the campus. So a student has to come up with a lot of practice ventures where they would be doing a real-time business, and through that real-time business, they should take the experience of a startup, how startup works. So the same thing we run here on the campus too, but due to COVID, it has all moved on the online platform. But the point here which I want to bring is, most of the time what happened when we talk with the student and when the student come to me and they bring their problem, I find that most of the time it is having the same idea. So a dedicated food platform or food delivery platform, food or medicine delivery platform, or a dedicated driver service, since we are living in a Naya Raipur, which is a smart city almost 25 to 30 kilometers away. So that is why many times travel is a problem, and that's why many of the students came up with the same problem. And you'll find out that apart from that, t-shirt making, venture. So these are some of the venture or venture idea which the student come up, and you find out that most of the ideas are repetitive. Most of the ideas are having low impact, and many times what happened, the idea is even infeasible. So for example, there was one of my students who have come up with an idea that instead of water bottle, we would be coming up with a algae pouch, where people can buy those algae pouch, and that would be a biodegradable solution for instead of a plastic bottle. But when we ask the student that, do you have that technology with you to have that, to create that kind of algae bottle, or whether you have certain tie-ups, or whether you have studied some patent. So many times what happens that the student doesn't have ideas. So almost every time you find out that the problem is what the students, the inherent gravity which should be there in the problem, that is lacking. And that is why whenever we talk about the proof of concept, we should first understand what is the problem. And that is why we would be looking from 3 parameters: whether your problem is impactful, whether it is feasible, and whether it is creative. So when I say these 3 terms, when I say impactful, so impactful means that the problem which you are looking into, whether that problem is actually looking into the concerns of the customers or people whom you feel that they are somehow having issues, or they are having some problems. Then the second thing is feasible. So the feasible means means that whether the solution you have thought of about that problem, whether you can solve that problem or not. And the third thing, the creative, is how creative that problem can be solved, or what is the whether the problems give you an inspiration to solve that problem with creativity. So let me just ask a question. When I talk about creativity, what does creativity mean? Can anybody suggest me? What does creativity mean? All of us, every day we talk about creativity. So here also we are talking about how to solve the problem with creativity, or whether the problem inspires you for the creativity. So what is creativity? Can anybody suggest me? Let us make it more engaging.
So a unique way of looking at things,
Okay.
trying to solve problem in a more unique way.
Trying to solve problem in a more unique way.
Yeah.
I think that is a really good answer. But many times what happens, if you look into, if I ask any person, if you are creative, are you creative? So you will find out that most of the time the answer is we are not creative, because we don't feel that we are artistic. So somehow what happened, the society have connected creativity with artistic creativity. And many times if we lack artistic abilities or artistic skill, we find that we are not creative. And that is a problem. So even if you are not artistic, if you can listen to the problem, if you can understand the problem, and if you can come up with a solution, okay, so that means that you are a creative person, and over the period of time, you will learn how to be creative. So this is what the most of the time the idea generation technique look like. Okay, so the idea generation technique look like that. When so for example, if I'm a founder, and most of the time it is being thought of that there is some moment where I think of a product, I feel that this product I would sell in the market and customer would buy. But most of the time the customer rejects the product. This is which happens. This is the typical process which everyone feels, that any entrepreneur, they come up with a product and the customer buy that product, or this is the same process which we should follow. And even I think many of you might have also thought of a problem from this perspective also, that I think that this is a problem, and based on this, I would create a product and the customer would buy. And this product idea has come to me as of some serendipity or some light bulb moment. So these things happens in the entrepreneurship, and most of the student venture, they are mostly like this. They thought about solution first, and then they think about the problem. So what happened? Most of the time when you look into the student ventures, you will find out that student have a solution prior to अंडरस्टैंडिंग द प्रॉब्लम. उनके पास सॉल्यूशन पहले होगा और बाद में दे ट्राई टू फिट दैट सॉल्यूशन विद अ प्रॉब्लम. And this is a wrong way, and we'll try to learn it, how to improve upon it. But why am I talking about all these things in POC? Because when I look into the POC, it is a proof of concept, and the proof of concept says that I have come up with a right solution. I have come up with a solution which customer is actually desiring. So when I come up with a solution, so that means that I have actually listened to the problem. I have actually gauged to the problem, and that is why it is very essential that we should first have a clear understanding about the problem, and only then we can think about the solution. So the solution feasibility is nothing else, but it is a POC. So, but what happened? The traditional thing which the traditional process which I have shown you, that the entrepreneur come up with a product and services, and they think that the customer will buy, but it doesn't happen in the same way. And the reason is because the customer don't buy. Customer buys solutions to the problem. Customer is buying your product not because he want to buy this product, but he is buying this product because he want to buy solution for his problem. So for example, let me say, if I want to ride Uber, so I don't want to ride Uber because this is a car which is being given by some company. I want to ride Uber because I have to travel from X place to Y, and this car is going to solve this problem. This is the solution for my problem to move from X to Y. So this is what the situation is, and that is why the customer rejects many of the product, and this is known as the entrepreneurship bias. Most of the entrepreneurs feel that the product and services they are coming up with is such a world-class product, is such a blockbuster product that everyone would buy, but normally it doesn't happen. And I think you'll get more clarity on the problem part when we'll be discussing about the Professor Clayton. And that is why what happened, instead of idea generation, most of the time we come up with a competition called Ideation Competition. I think many of you must have heard about it. Ideation is happening. Instead of idea, we should always think it in form of a problem generation technique or a problem generation skills. Because we are not generating idea. Idea generation means that you are coming up with an idea of product or services. Instead of that, if you change your mindset, this is actually the entrepreneurship is all about the mindset. And here you are going to change your mindset in a form that you are coming up with a problem generation skills. And those problems would be impactful problem. These problems could have a feasible solution, and it could give you a lot of inspiration for coming up with a creative solutions. So this is how the problem generation skills should be. And overall, the whole of the entrepreneurship is focused on developing the problem generation skill. So we'll start with the problem, and this we know that the customer rejects product, but if you are matching the problem with the solution which the customer is looking for, the customer is even ready to prepay you. And the best entrepreneurs in the world are those which can take prepayment from you. So for example, there is a famous example of Dell. Now I think Dell has moved, their business model have changed. But if you look into the Dell history, you'll find out that Dell has come up from the university dorm, and they were assembling the computer products so they were assembling the computers so that it could be available to customer at a lower cost. But their payment model was such, because it was addressing one of the biggest pain of the customer, which was the reducing the cost. They were asking customer to pay upfront, and that is why you will feel that the problem they have matched with the solution was the problem was so intense that the solution which they have offered, the customer was ready even to pay you upfront. And most of the time you find out that the startups or the venture which are most successful are those which are able to take the payment or the generate revenue from the customer in advance. And this is how some of the top startups in the world are built, which are built by the customer funding, which are built by the customer payment, or which are built by the prepayment. So there is a concept which has been given by Professor Clay Clinton, and I think this concepts give you a very different perspective to look into problem. and there is a video attached to it. I think let me just give you a brief idea, because I feel that moment we get into this video, this would again take 8 or 9 minutes. Maybe let me ask ma'am here, do student have a, can we play this video, ma'am?
Sir, I think we can. I'm not sure actually.
Okay, so let me address it, ma'am. What this concept is, so that maybe a student can watch it. You can share the presentation with the students, and maybe
Yes,
at their leisure time they can go through this video. So this concept has been given by Professor Clayton Christensen, and he's one of the most renowned professor from Harvard Business School. And you'll find out that the concept he has given is the jobs to be done. So the goal of the jobs to be done is to understand the outcome your customer is trying to reach. So for example, many of us use shampoo. And can anybody suggest me, why do we use shampoo? It could be
cleaning,
yeah, ma'am.
cleansing our hair.
Cleansing our hair, it could be dandruff problem, it could be variety of problem. But let me suggest you that suppose if I come up with an oil someday, and I say that this oil will help you in cleansing your hair better than the shampoo, what will happen? You may move from shampoo to oil, because you'll find out that the oil is going to give you better service. So what happened? Most of the time, we feel that it is the product which is going to satisfy us, but we have to think it from a different perspective. The perspective is, what is the end job which you are looking out from that product? So for example, for example, Professor Clayton has done an experiment in McDonald's. He found out that in morning, a lot of people are coming to McDonald's in USA, and they are straight away buying only one product, which is a milkshake. So he became very curious, and he tried to find out why are customer buying the milkshake from McDonald's in morning. In morning, the sales of the shake is very high. So can anybody suggest me what could be the possible answer? Why customer is purchasing milkshake? Any answer could be a good answer. I feel so. You can give any answer.
Milkshake makes you more full, maybe. It's
Okay.
more difficult to digest, so keeps you fuller for a longer time.
Yes. So it keeps you fuller for a longer time. This is what people are buying milkshake. But actually, when he tried to understand deeper, he found out that those people want to be engaged for a longer duration. They want to be awakened most of the people who are coming to McDonald's in the morning, they have to travel for a longer duration to their office. And that's why they are purchasing milkshake, because they want to keep themselves engaged. So instead of thinking milkshake as a product to satisfy their hunger, they found out that milkshake is actually helping them in keeping them engaged. So you look into from the functional job. So initially it looked like it is a functional job which the shake is going to do. But over the period of time, when you try to dig deeper, you find out that the actual problem with the customer is they want to keep themselves engaged. And this is what the milkshake example is doing. And that is why he used the word hiring. So whenever you think from your customer perspective, think from a perspective that why you are hiring that product or service. That would give you an actual answer that what is the job which customer is looking to be done. So if you have identified the right problem, okay, you'll find out that the right problem you will come to understand about the right problem if you have an empathy, if you have a good observation, if you try to understand what is the jobs which the customer need to do, what are the pain points of the customer. So once you try to gauge those things, okay, only then you can come up with a good solution. And that problem will actually leads to empathy, which will inspire innovation or the creative solutions, and which the customer is ready to buy or ready to pay you upfront. So this is how the whole problem discovery is. Now the first part is the problem, but the moment you get into the problem, the next thing which comes into the picture is whether the problem is problem worth solving. It may be a good problem, but whether that problem is a problem worth solving, that is again a very important question. You'll find out that there are hundreds of problems around you, and every time we are cribbing about problem, but that doesn't mean that you have to solve all the problem. You have to solve the problem which is on the top priority. The problem which is very intense, only that has to be solved. So how do we decide that the problem is a problem worth solving? This is the second question. And from this thing would come the first dimension of the POC, which is the economic viability, whether the customer is ready to pay for you. The problem you have identified, whether it is really a wicked problem, whether the customer feel that this problem is really intense for them. So from there, this concept of problem worth solving come, and the problem worth solving means that it has a good market. कोई भी product तभी बिकेगा जब उसका market बड़ा हो. So I think many of you must be watching Shark Tank these days, and they are using word called TAM, SAM, and SOM. So total addressable market आपकी कितनी है? Until and unless the market is big, you'll find out that that problem is not worth solving, even if that is a good problem. And the second thing is customer is ready to pay. These are the things we are going to look into the next part, which is about the solution building. So there is a thing called validation. So POC is all about validation. You have to validate the problem. So with the problem also you will do validation, and with solution also you are going to do the validation. And when I say validation, it means that you have asked other customers or the similar customers whether they are also facing the same problem, whether they are also ready to pay, whether they are just excuse me. So whether they are ready to pay for the problem or not. So this is how the problem validation will happen. And many times we find out that the students or the entrepreneur, who doesn't do the problem validation at the first hand, they face problems. They have an issue once they go for the solution. So this is the first part. And the next part is developing the solution. And when I say developing solutions, there is one of the important concept which has emerged, which is known as the design thinking. I think most of you must have heard about it. And it is an immensely human-centered. And if you look into some of the values, it is a mindful of process. You are biased toward the action. Instead of talking, you will show something you will show solution by the product. It is about the radical collaboration. So design thinking doesn't work in teams, work in silos. You work in team, and there is a culture of prototyping. So why we are talking about design thinking process? So once you have identified that this is a problem worth solving, the next thing is you have to look into how to come up with a good solution. So the first thing is the empathize. I think there is a difference between empathy and sympathy. In empathizing, you would actually get into the shoes of a person who is facing that same problem. Once you find out that this problem is a relevant problem, you try to get into the context of the problem, then you define the point of view about it. And then the third step is the ideation, where once you define the problem statement, I think a lot of hackathons are coming, and these hackathons are giving you a lot of problem statements. So these problem statements are nothing but the defining the problem. So once you get into the shoes of a customer who is facing the problem, you can then define the problem from the perspective of that customer. And once you have defined the problem, then you would try to identify the solutions. So those solutions you can identify through a very easy technique called brainstorming. Once you have done the brainstorming, then you can go for the prototyping. I'm really sorry for the mistake. Prototyping. And the prototyping is you are coming up with a minimum possible solution or a smallest solution with a minimum possible features. So this is what the prototype is. And finally, you can then you have to test it. So this is how the whole process is, but this doesn't mean that this is a linear process. This process could have some steps which has been skipped, but overall this whole design thinking process is based on one of the very fundamental principle that you have to test, you have to do a rapid testing, and through the rapid testing, if you are failing, that is being celebrated, and try to gauge the customer feedback and try to improve upon the product. So this is how the whole process of design thinking is. It is actually an experimentation process. You do a lot of testing, you do a lot of experimentation, you try to, there is no such thing like perfection. I think there is a very engaging exercise given by the Stanford, who they have developed this design thinking with the company called IDEO. And during this whole process, what happened? You try to develop the prototype with the minimum possible resources. So many times we think that until and unless we don't have money, we don't have resources, we won't be able to create prototype. But this design thinking says that there is nothing called as the perfect solution. Every solution is imperfect, and it is through the critical feedback over the period of time. You iterate again and again, and you come up with a solution which is actually needed by the customer. So this is how the whole design thinking is based, and this design thinking is actually at the heart of the POC. So whenever you have looked into the problem, now you have to come up with a solution which is actually being looked after, which the customer is looking for, and then you have to test it. So I think in the next few steps, you will try to understand more about it. So once you have identified it, you'll find out that this is what you have to do. If you look into this canvas, you'll find out that it is a value proposition canvas. And this value proposition canvas is nothing else, but it is a problem solution fit. अभी तक हमने दो चीजों की बात की है, प्रॉब्लम की और सॉल्यूशन की. So if you have a wicked problem, you will use design thinking, and this is one of the very popular methodology which is being used. So now what is happening? You have to make a match between problem and solution. So if you look into this whole canvas, you'll find out that on the left side there is a customer segment, and on the right side there is a value proposition. So in the left side, you will find out that this extreme left is the jobs which customer want to do. So the jobs could be the functional jobs, the emotional job, the social jobs. केवल एक job नहीं होती है, कई तरह की job हो सकती है. So for example, you might be purchasing car not because you want to use it as a mobility vehicle. Many of us purchase car because we want to use it as something which gives us a status. Many of us in the society still have car because it is a status symbol. And that is why I think Tata Nano has failed. If you remember, this is one of the very blockbuster product. I hope everyone of you knows Tata Nano. So can anybody suggest me why Nano has failed? It was one of the best product which could have ever been made in India.
सर बिकॉज इसका जो अर्लियर प्राइस था वो बहुत कम रखा गया था, लेकिन उसके बाद में फिर इसका प्राइस भी बहुत मतलब ज्यादा बढ़ गया था, जो मुझे लगा.
Okay. Any other answer? I think this is a good discussion to take forward.
I think it was also too tiny. Matlab, size was very
Yeah,
small.
it's due to its design.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, we also have big families in India. You cannot do with such a small car.
Okay. So ma'am, if you look into Tata Nano, or if you look into history of Tata Nano, you'll find out that Ratan Tata, while traveling from his home to office, he have seen that on bike 4 people are traveling, a whole family is traveling with husband and her spouse and 2 children, and he found that it is very dangerous to travel on a bike or a scooter. So then he thought of that, why not come up with a car which is low at cost and customer would be going to buy, because this is what the problem is. The customer is feeling the pain. Why not come up with a product and match that? I feel every one of us remember that when Tata Nano was launched, there was so much of word of mouth. There was so much of news. so much in news. Everywhere in the world, everyone was talking about Tata Nano, and their first booking has broken all the records. But there was a fundamental problem which Tata Nano has made a mistake. So if you remember, there was a branding that, so all the newspaper which has taken out the story on Tata Nano, they have branded it as a poor man car or a cheapest car. Initially it was cheapest car. Over the period of time it becomes the poor man car. आप car purchase कर रहे हो because you want to move up the ladder. As I have said, many of us purchase car because we want to show to the people that car is what we own. Car is still a luxury item. But जब आप टाटा नैनो परचेस कर रहे हो तो क्या हो रहा है कि सामने वाला आदमी आपसे कह रहा है कि अरे ये तो गरीब है, because you are a poor man because you have purchased a Tata Nano car. So even if you are purchasing the car, your social status has not elevated. So that is why there was a faulty positioning which Tata Nano have made. And over the period of time, they have tried to change it, but they were not able to do so. And that is why Tata Nano was a big failure, but it gives us a lot of glimpse about how the customer behave. So even if the problem was matching, you'll find out that because of the wrong positioning, the Tata Nano have failed. Even though there was a lot of popularity about the car, the first booking of the Tata Nano was humongous. Then too, these things has happened. So जब हम ये देख रहे हैं, if you look into, so the point which I want to derive is केवल एक जॉब नहीं होती है. So that functional job ही नहीं देखता customer. Customer also look for the emotional job. Customer also look for a social jobs. And in the customer segment, so as a company, you have to first look into the jobs which the customer is looking for. Then you also have to look into what are the pains or what are the challenges or what are the difficulties, what are the risks the customer is facing, and how to make customer happy. So that is the gain creators. Sorry, these are the gains which customer is looking for. So the customer तीन चीजें देखता है: jobs, pain points, what are the pain points of the customer, and what are the gain points. So what could be the gain points of the customer? अगर आपने इन तीनों को मैच कर दिया, so for example, emotional jobs, social job or functional jobs को, so this is the product and service I am going to offer, which is known as the, so suppose I am going to come up with an app. So this is what the product and service is, but your app is not the value proposition. यही चीज मैं आपको पहले भी बताना चाह रहा था कि your product and service is not the value proposition. Value proposition is the value being offered to the customer, and the customer is perceiving it as an value. अगर कोई product और service को customer value नहीं perceive कर रहा, so then it will not be a value. तो आपको यहाँ पे, if you look into this value proposition, right hand side value proposition is going to match with the customer segment. If you are able to match, if you are able to come up with a painkillers and the gain creators in your product, so this is a good value proposition, and this is what the POC look like. POC जब तक है, so if you look into the POC is something which is between idea and so if you look into POC, okay, so there is a so if you look into this continuum, I don't know what is this. Give me a second. So if you look into the continuum, so this is the idea, this is POC, and this is the prototype. Prototype and MVP. So this is the continuum in which we go. So from idea to POC to MVP. And if you look into this value proposition, you will find out that this is how your POC would look like. So this right hand side value proposition would give you, this is how your concept would look like, but this has to be tested. And if you look into, this is the value proposition for an app-based taxi, which all of us use. Here on the left hand side, you'll find out that these are the jobs which customer is looking for. These are the pains, and these are some of the gains which would make customer happy if it would be there. for the customers. And based on that, this is what the Ola has created for themselves, an app-based taxi, while these are the pain relievers and these are the gain creators or the painkillers and gain creators. So real-time arrival, Wi-Fi facility, driving rating, Paytm cash, choice of cab. So these are the things which the customer is looking for. And if you come up with this kind of, if you can create this kind of a solution, this is what the POC look like. And when you create an actual solution with a minimum features, this is how the prototype look like. So POC just comes in between that. So then there is a very important methodology which is given by Ash Maurya. He is one of the biggest entrepreneurship educator, and he has actually given the lean canvas model concept. And if you look into this lean startup methodology, you'll find out that it is built on three things: learn, build, and measure. And it is an iterative process. So you learn about the customer needs. Okay. Based on the idea. Let me just make it more clear. So the first thing is you identify the customer need. So from that you create the product solution or the ideas, and based on that you create MVP. Your MVP is a product, and once you create that product, you try to validate that product, you try to measure it, and once you measure it, you get a data or a feedback, and based on the feedback you then try to improve upon your idea. There is a word called pivot. Anyone knows what does pivot mean?
So it's
We'll
a
find out
point
that-
around which everything rotates.
Okay.
I
Anyone
mean,
else?
it's a literal meaning.
Her literal meaning is, ma'am, pivot is same, but in entrepreneurship,
That's right.
it has a very significant meaning, pivot.
Okay.
So if you look into pivot, ma'am, you'll find out that pivot is something which all the entrepreneurs do. So you look into Snapdeal, you'll find out that the Snapdeal has not started as Snapdeal. At one point of time, they were the coupon offering company. And over the period of time, once they get the feedback from the customer, then they entered into the commerce website. So from the coupon selling, they have come into the product selling. So this is how every company goes into. So the pivoting means you are changing your business model. And how are you changing the business model? I have not created the canvas here. I have not put the slide about the canvas. When you look into a business canvas or the business model, we are not talking about business plan. We are talking about the business model. That is a one-page representation of how what are the important 9 elements of your business. So if you look into all these 9 elements, sorry, it is not here. Once you go to the business model, I think every one of you must have gone through it. You will find out that all these 9 elements are the hypothesis. आप एक hypothesis बना रहे हो कि मेरे customer segment ये होंगे, मेरा solution ये होगा, मेरा value proposition ये होगा, मेरी costing ये होगी, मेरा channel ये होगा distribution का, मेरे metrics ये होंगे. So all the numbers which you are fitting in the in the business model is a hypothesis, and then you have to test all the hypotheses, and this is what the validation means, and this is what the POC means. So from value proposition, you would be creating the business model, and this business model will be following the lean startup methodology given by the Ash Maurya. And in the business model, there are 9 elements, और आप उन सभी 9 elements को आप test करते हो. And based on the testing, once you find out that this business model is not viable, you pivot, you change your business model. So pivoting means आप एक business से दूसरे business में move करते हो once you identify that this business is not viable. This is what. So either you pivot or you preserve, or you keep on doing the same business. And most of the time you'll find out that almost 90 to 95% of the entrepreneur, they pivot during their entrepreneurial journey. कोई भी आप business देखोगे तो कहीं ना कहीं उसमें pivoting होती है, because you'll find out their customer change, your market change, the taste and preferences changes, and there are a variety of other factors which change. So that is why a lot of pivoting happen. Paytm, if you see, that has started with a recharge, and now it is a full-fledged e-commerce company, and now it has again pivoted to a payment bank. So अब Paytm जो है, जो initially that those things are still there, But once you look into a focus of Paytm, it has moved into the payment bank. So this is what which is happening. And so, for example, let me again make it more clear to you. What does hypothesis testing mean in entrepreneurship? So if you look, all of us must be aware about Elon Musk, which is one of the renowned entrepreneur and what very reverted entrepreneur. So if you look into Elon Musk solution, which is a Tesla, you'll find out that Elon Musk has not created the car Tesla. Instead, he has come up with a battery which can, so once he has created the business model, he found out that the solution he is offering is not the car. Instead, it is a battery. Tesla is an electric car. And he found out that the riskiest assumption is that, that if I purchase this electric car, my electric car can stuck anywhere if the charge happens to end. So what happened? Elon Musk had thought that they have to improve upon the battery, and that is why that was the riskiest assumption. That was their biggest hypothesis to be tested. So this is how the lean startup methodology work. You come upon ideas, you build upon that idea in form of an MVP. That MVP, if you find out that if that MVP the customer are really eager for those MVP, then you develop it into a product. You measure with the data, you measure it with the customer, you go for the validation with the data, you again try to take the feedback, you either pivot or you preserve the same business model. So this is how you come up with a solution. So a lot of iteration goes into the solution. आप कोई भी solution एक बार में perfect नहीं बनता है. Don't go for a perfection if you are going for a startup journey. Try to build something and then based on the feedback, try to improve upon it. This is what the lean methodology say. And this is how all the entrepreneurs, they usually do. Most of the time, the businesses you will find out are the SaaS-based business, service as the software. And you'll find out that this is the validation which is happening most of the time. So this is again why I would be putting a statement: stop asking customer what they want. Instead, start asking what they want your product to do for them. Okay. So this is again, this statement is again derived from the previous statement where we say that customer don't buy product and services. They buy a solution to their problem. So the solution you have come up, you will again validate. आपने जो ये solution यहाँ पे define किया है या इसके बाद जो आप business model बनाओगे, that is again a solution. ये एक minimum solution दिख रहा है value proposition के form में. Detailed one is the business model. जब वो business model आप बनाएंगे, let me just show you. For example, so if you look into this is one kind of business model. Though this is not a lean canvas model, I think the image is not so clear. So if you look into 9 elements are there, and these 9 elements are 9 hypotheses. आप इसमें जो भी fill करोगे information, you have to test it, and this is how the validation happens. So the solution validation is nothing else, but you are actually looking into the proof of concept. You are trying to validate the proof of concept. Okay. So finally, once you come up with a solution, जैसे आपने problem में validation किया था, आपने जब problem identify कर लिया था, तो you have to do a interviews for problem validation, which is known as you want to identify the problem worth solving. जब आप solution बनाओगे, तो you also have to test the solution. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने solution बनाया and then you feel that okay, this is the best solution. You have to again test the solution to know what is the feedback of the customer. Are they liking it? Is it solving the problem? And whether they are ready to pay. This is known as the problem market fit, और वो MVP में आता है. So your solution interview give way to the MVP. So if you look into this whole, you'll find out that this is how your questionnaire should be. Once you create your solution, and then you have to show to the customer, tell them the story. This is the pain which you have got from the customer, and while going to the similar kind of customer, then you take the interview of them. And this is the toughest part. And this is known as the customer discovery. And this concept has been given by the Steve Blank, who is again one of the revered professor. And you will find out that the customer discovery and the customer interviews, these are the key to getting the product success. And most of the time we don't do that. So once you have done the solution interview, then you try to develop the MVP. Again, do the MVP validation. Through MVP, you will come to know about your early adopters. Early adopters are those customers which are first to buy your product and services. These are the people who are facing the problem and who are also wanting to solve this problem. तो आपको ये आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि आपके अर्ली अडॉप्टर्स आपको कहाँ मिलेंगे. You can get your early adopters maybe on website, maybe on maybe in the feedback, maybe your complaining customers could be your early adopters. वहां से आपको मिलेगा. So for example, let me say a problem that these days parents are into a lot of stress because of the child education, and they are working parents. So working parents are into a lot of stress because of their online education of their child. So this is a problem which actually every parent is facing these days. So you'll find out that these parents might be looking for certain solution to solve this problem. They might be going to website to identify whether there is some training course, whether there is a online course, whether there is some feedback they could give, whether they can talk to their friends. So from there you can know that these are your early adopters. And if those early adopters are ready to pay, so that means that you have got the product market fit. So this is how the whole of the, if you look into the proof of concept look like. So from the problem identification to problem validation to solution validation to MVP validation. This is how your whole of the entrepreneurship journey look like, it is the way in which the entrepreneurship journey happen, and thus it becomes the most critical part. So everywhere you'll find out that the customer is at the center, and every time you have to interact with the customer. You can't sit in silos and you say that the customer would purchase the product. Customer won't purchase the product until and unless you interact with them, you empathize with them, you try to understand what are the problems they are facing. So once you know, so then you should not. So this is the question which I have posted. What are you waiting for? I think there's certain clarity in the statement also I have to make. So if you look into the statement of the presentation, it is an online repository of POC. It is mostly directed to the institute. So for example, if a student is taking up a problem, so he should take at least 3 or 4 problems, try to test them, and then find out a solution. So that solution could be in form of a 2 or 3 solutions. So once you get a 4 or 5 numbers of problem, okay, once you identify 4 or 5 problem, then maybe that could be a repository for you, and those problems could be a guiding force for the upcoming students, and other students can also take an inspiration from them, and they might build up a solution for them. So this is repository in form of a problem. I feel that this is how you have to go for a proof of concept. So this is what I think that it could be given in the time which has been allotted to me. And I feel that I have been able to add something. If you have any question, you can ask me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I call Dr. Neha to take up the question answer session. If there are any questions from the students or participants.
Ma'am, now the session is open for the discussion. Any students and faculty member have any query regarding this, they can ask. आप अपने सवाल हिंदी में भी पूछ सकते हैं सर, हिंदी में भी आपके जवाब देंगे. किसी भी स्टूडेंट्स का कोई भी सवाल हो तो वो पूछ सकता है. I think The question for Kassis Pal: How is POC work on sales?
How is POC works on sales?
Sales.
Okay, so I think the MVP part, which I have told you. So the MVP is you are coming up with a product with a minimum features. And once you come up with a product with minimum features, you will find out that from that you will get to know who are your early adopters. So early adopters are those customers who are first going to adopt your product. So her customer, if you look into, there is a concept which has been given by Professor Rogers, and this concept is known as the theory of diffusion. And in the theory of diffusion, he says that there are 4 kinds of customers. So if you look into those 4 kinds of customers, you will find out there are early adopters, then there are early majority, then late majority, and laggards. So the early adopters are the customers who first purchase the product and services which are launched in the market. And these product and services are actually being purchased by them, or they are buying that because those problems, those product and services are solving their problem. So her customer purchase nahi karta, early adopter purchase karte. So if the early adopters purchase your product, you'll find out that once the early adopters start purchasing the product, the late adopters, they also start adopting or start buying your product. So early adopter identify karna sabse zaruri hai, and early adopters give you validation that the customer is liking your product, and then maybe you can improve upon your sales. There is a mechanism also how to identify a problem. Sorry for because of the paucity of time, मैं उस चीज को ले नहीं पाया कि हम प्रॉब्लम कैसे आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हैं. देयर इज अ वेरी गुड मैकेनिज्म. मे बी आई वुड बी शेयरिंग द शीट. आप वो शीट उसको देख सकते हैं. एंड फ्रॉम आई हैव शेयर्ड विद रिया मैम, एंड फ्रॉम देयर यू कैन get that knowledge.
So another question is, can we apply this POC in any type of business?
You can apply. POC is the proof of concept. आपने जो भी idea, so concept is nothing else but is understanding the problem and coming up with an idea or a solution. So that solution is a concept. और उस कोई भी अगर आप business देखेंगे, that they are based on certain, they are offering solutions, and those solutions are concept. तो कहीं हर जगह applied है POC. But mostly software company, they are using more of POC. But I find that with the coming up of lean methodology, POC is now being used everywhere, and it is one of the most critical one. जब भी आप pitch करने जाएंगे angel investors को या venture capitalist को, so for example अगर आप Shark Tank देख रहे होंगे, all the businesses which are showing it to the sharks, they are either MVP, or it could be final product, or it could be proof of concept. कुछ लोगों ने वहाँ पे proof of concept भी दिया है.
What is difference between MVP and POC?
Okay, so POC is how you are conceptualizing your solution. आप एक concept कैसे बना रहे हो, so that you can write in a paper. जैसे मैंने अभी business model बताया या value proposition बताया, वो आपने paper में, just a minute. So let me share my screen. So for example, when you look into this value proposition, this is on the paper. अभी तक आपने कुछ बनाया नहीं है. This is what the concept, this is how the conceptually it look like. So for example, अगर आप फिल्म देखें कोई, तो फिल्म में आप आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे कि a film is जब उसकी कहानी आपके सामने आती है, जब एक्टर कोई कहानी पढ़ता है फिल्म की, that is a concept. लेकिन जब वो कहानी एक्चुअल में बन जाती है, it becomes film. So this is the same what is MVP or what is the POC. So POC is the concept which is the कहानी of the film, और जो फिल्म है वो MVP या फाइनल प्रोडक्ट हो सकता है.
So much, sir. I think there is no any more questions.
Pleasure, ma'am.
Over to you, Neeta ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Neha.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
Anita, I request you to kindly propose vote of thanks.
Okay, ma'am. So I take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude on the behalf of the Institute Innovation Council of SSK GDC Firstly, I would like to extend a heartfelt thanks to our session's distinguished speaker, Dr. Agarwal. Sir,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us on this interesting topic. Sir, you have very beautifully explained the key features which should be kept into consideration while thinking and planning to launch any product. As you have very well said that customers don't want the products, but they actually want the solution of their problem. So we should ponder over the problems of the customer and the suitable solution for that. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your valuable time with us and enlightening us with your knowledge and experience on the topic.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for inviting.
Yes, thank you, sir. I would like to thank our principal madam and president of IIC, Dr. Lalima Singh. Madam is not present with us, but I thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your motivational support. I also convey my heartily thanks to Vice Principal Dr. Nirja Sachdeva, ma'am, senior faculty members of IIC, Dr. Manji Shukla, madam, and Dr. Meenu Agarwal, ma'am, for their blessings and support. Further, I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Anuradha Singh, who is the convener of SSKIIC, and all the members of SSKIIC for their unconditional support and collaboration. Last but not the least, I would like to extend my thanks to all the participants who have made this event successful, and we are pretty sure that the participant must have benefited by attending this program. We will be back with you with such more events. For more updates in this regard, keep visiting our college website and our college Telegram channel. So stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So can we end this meeting?
Students are requested to fill the feedback form.
Okay, yeah.
It is posted in a chat box.
Please fill the feedback form, students.